What if your voice was so quiet that, at first, no one listened? What if the laws of your country told you that your gender made you less worthy, less capable, less powerful? Would you stay silent? Or would you keep speaking until the world finally had to hear you? This is the story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the woman they called Notorious RBG. A tiny figure with a giant impact. A voice that began as a whisper and grew into a roar that reshaped the law of an entire nation. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was born in Brooklyn in 1933. From the very start, she lived in a world that told women to dream smaller. When she entered Harvard Law School in the 1950s, she was one of just 9 women in a class of more than 500 men. At dinner with the dean, the women were asked, "Why are you taking a spot that should go to a man?" It wasn't a question, it was a statement. A reminder that women, in the eyes of society, were out of place. But Ruth didn't back down. She studied harder, spoke clearer, and became one of the top legal minds of her generation. When Ruth graduated, no law firm wanted to hire her simply because she was a woman. So she turned her rejection into fuel. She became a professor, then a litigator, and eventually argued 6 landmark cases before the Supreme Court, winning 5 of them. Case by case, brick by brick, she dismantled the walls of gender discrimination. She didn't argue that women should be treated better than men. She argued that men and women should be treated equally under the law. One of her most famous cases was in T, even on behalf of a woman. It was for a man who had been denied benefits because the law assumed only women could be caregivers. Ruth understood that equality meant fairness in both directions. In 1993, Ruth Bader Ginsburg became the second woman ever appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court. She was soft-spoken, deliberate, thoughtful, yet her words carried the weight of justice. Over time, she became known not just for her majority opinions, but for her powerful dissents, her ability to stand firm even when the court ruled against her beliefs. Those dissents became a rallying cry. They inspired a new generation who affectionately nicknamed her Notorious RBG, a playful nod to rapper. Notorious B.I.G., but the name fit. She was notorious not for anger, but for her persistence. Psychologists call this the power of consistent minority influence. Research shows that when a person or group holds firm to their position calmly, consistently, without giving in, they can shift the beliefs of the majority over time. That's what Ruth did. She didn't shout. She didn't rage. She spoke with reason, clarity, and conviction, and again, until her ideas no longer seemed radical, but obvious. Sociologists often point out that laws don't just change because of politics. They change because courageous individuals force society to see its own contradictions. Ruth's work revealed those contradictions and guided the law toward fairness. Her legacy is proof. A single steady voice can bend the arc of history. If Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life were a parable, it might go like this. There was once a stone wall that blocked half the village from crossing. Many people hit the wall and turned back. Some shouted at it, but one woman carried a small chisel. Day after day, she tapped not loudly, but steadily. Others laughed. Others ignored her. But one morning, the villagers woke to find a doorway carved through the wall, and the woman, still small in stature, stepped aside not to walk through first, but to let everyone else pass. Ruth's story reminds us of something profound. Change doesn't always come through thunder and lightning. Sometimes it comes through steady drops of water, carving stone over time. We live in a world that still tells people because of gender, race, class, or background that they don't belong. And in those moments, it's tempting to stay silent, to say, "That's just how it is." But Ruth Bader Ginsburg showed us, silence allows injustice to survive. Steadfast voices create justice, and you don't have to be on the Supreme Court to live that truth. You only need the courage to speak when it matters, to stand when it's hard, to persist when the world tells you to quit. Ruth Bader Ginsburg taught us that one voice, repeated with courage and consistency, can reshape the law itself. That strength doesn't always shout it, often whispers, until the world finally listens. So, here's the question for you. What wall in your life or in our society needs your steady voice? And will you choose to stay silent or to keep speaking until change comes? If Ruth's story moved you, hit like to honor her legacy. Share this video with someone who needs the reminder that their voice matters. And don't forget to subscribe for more modern parable stories that reveal how ordinary people, through persistence, create extraordinary change. Because sometimes one voice really can change the system.